Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Novogratz, and this is Next with Novo. Guys, I'm back here in the seat, Next with Novo, with Big Al Harrington. I'm really excited for this talk. I met Al when he was still playing hoops, and he came out to the Hamptons and shot hoops one day, and my kids were like, "Dad, that's Al Harrington." I was like, I know. And I just liked him. And anyway, first of all, welcome.
Thanks, man. It's funny, just real quick on that story. You was the first person to ever get me on a helicopter. And I I was so nervous, bro. I was like, it was one pilot. I kept thinking, like, what if something happens to him? But then you had your kids in the helicopter too. So I was like, this must be safe.
Well, I knew Al was special because he started in the NBA. How old were you when you started?
I started at 18.
18 years old. 18 years old. I don't think I had my first kiss. And he was playing in front of 20,000 people at Madison Square Garden. But was more impressive is he was one of the only athletes I'd ever met that had saved all his money. He acted like he was a big fun guy, but he was just shoving it all in his pocket. And so how did you get that? Like, where did you get that discipline or that mindset? Was it your grandma whacking you on the head? Or like, how did you?
I'm gonna be honest, Mike. Like you said, you met me a little further down the road. Honestly, my first 3 years in the league, I came in the league, it was a lockout year. I think my first contract was like maybe a total about $3 million. And I remember one day in the locker room, finishing up my third year, one of my teammates, his name is Derek McKee. He just started asking me questions about my finances to see what I knew. And I honestly didn't know nothing. And he was asking me, how much am I paying fees? And I'm this, and I'm like, I have no idea. He's like, well, do you know how much money you have? And I was like, I think I do. So I went and I looked, and honestly, man, like, to be all the way honest, I had like $375,000 in the bank after making almost $3 million. And when I told him that the next day, he was like, man, I'm gonna help you out. He's like, I'm gonna introduce you to my financial advisor, a guy named Billy Wilcoxon. He was out of Lexington, Kentucky, old man. And when I got with him, so before I chose him, I started to talk to other financial advisors. And honestly, what made me choose him was what he said to me. He said that you're not going to go broke on my watch. He's like, I'll fire you before you go broke with me managing your money, and my reputation will be, tarnished. And that's what made me choose him. And honestly, man, when I got with him, he was the one that taught me that shit, man. He was just like, look, you got to become more frugal. You have to start living off of a budget. When I wanted to do all these business deals and all these investments, he would always say, like, he would challenge me. He would say, okay, you want to do the investment. What do you know about the investment? Have you done any research yourself? So he's the one that really started to just bring me up and made me, become a real entrepreneur from the standpoint of doing due diligence, finding out the history of companies, different things like that. So it was literally my financial advisor that at the time.
We should give him a great shout out because he did a great job. Yeah, when I met you, you already had, it was more than $25 million saved. I was shocked because I was like, you got to pay taxes, you got to pay the agent, you got to have some fun. And I knew you were making a lot of money, but it was still a lot to have saved back then. And so, when you were in the NBA, were you rare that way? Or was the culture changing where everybody was starting to save money? Because you always read about these stories that people, play 4 years, they get out and they're broke a year later.
No, I mean, I think that still happens. I think, Mike, the main thing with that is when you just think about most NBA players, right? Most of us are Black, right? Most of us are first generation money is how I describe it best, right? We don't have anybody in our families that we can go to and ask for advice, right? Like this, nobody ever seen paying taxes at this level and understanding ways to, not high tax money, but, just the way to maneuver, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody knows that. So a lot of times we come in and we have to trust people that we met for the very first time. And 75% of those guys are scumbags. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's the main reason why a lot of guys lose their money. And, guys just don't understand just how to manage money, understanding real overhead, understanding if you get 5 houses, those are 5 mortgages, 5 insurance, 5 property taxes, all these different things.
A wife and 2 girlfriends, it all goes downhill straight.
Don't even start with the girlfriend and the lifestyle. I mean, you can forget about it when you add that. So yeah, it's tough, but I think the guys now, honestly, I think that financial literacy is more available, especially like when I was getting towards the end of my career. They will have like at least twice a year where they would bring us in and have us meet with different financial advisors or just people just for us to just think about the way that we manage our cash and stuff like that. So hopefully, we're getting away from that. A lot of athletes being broke, where guys are now learning to take care of their money and just become businesses, themselves.
Right. So you left the NBA, and we'll get back to the NBA because that's a lot of fun to talk about. But you left the NBA, and how did you kind of reset? What was, you got people cheering for you for years and high five and pictures, and you went from Al Harrington basketball great to, okay, I'm going to be a businessman. But how did you become a businessman? You'd already been an investor, you had money, but this weed journey where you really became a major force in weed. How did that get started? I mean, you probably like smoking it, but
I mean, if I sit here and tell you I planned it, I'll be lying. I'm a big believer in God. Even for me, getting into the NBA was like something that I didn't plan. Right? I didn't have hoop dreams as a kid. Like I didn't dream to be the next Michael Jordan or anything like that. I wanted to play football because when I was growing up, I was kind of fat and uncoordinated. Right?
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Orange, New Jersey.
Yeah.
So, if you ask anybody that I grew up with, they still to this day be like, Al, how did you make it in professional basketball? Like you couldn't even run and chew gum. How did you end up being a pro? Right. So, it started from that. Like, I just feel like, I almost feel like I'm kind of predestined to like do what I'm doing. So, to your point of like, what was next? Honestly, if you ask me, year 12, I played 16 years. If you ask me at year 12 is when I started to finally think about like, what's next, right? It was the coach, period. I love the game. I feel like I have a lot I could give to the game. I love teaching. I love just being around the sport in general. So it was to coach. But, it all changed for me when I had cannabis, I had my grandmother try cannabis and, she tried it. At first, she didn't want to try it, obviously. She was just like, what? Because I kept calling it cannabis. And she's like, well, what is cannabis? And I was like, it's marijuana, weed. She's like, reefer? She's like, boy, I'm not going to smoke no reefer to help my eyes because she had glaucoma pain. So the next day, I came home from shoot around and she was complaining about her eyes. And I was able to convince her to try it. She tried it. And, hour and a half later, I go check on her and she was downstairs reading her Bible and she was crying. And she was like, this was the first time she's seen the words of her Bible in over 3.5 years.
Wow.
So that's what made me now educate myself. I already had the track record of learning to do due diligence and do my own investigations and stuff from my financial advisor that, a year later, I decided to make my first investment into the cannabis space in the state of Colorado. And this was obviously while I was still playing. So when I first started, same thing, like I didn't know that I would end up being where I am now, being the largest Black-owned cannabis company in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like I thought that I was just going to grow medicine and just help, small people, clients, patients here and there. And, as it kept growing and growing and growing. And what I really found was my purpose, right? The purpose around it was that I had finally realized that cannabis, destroys Black communities, right? 85% of all drug arrests in the Black community are cannabis related, bro. And when you think about that, we don't own no farms. We don't own no trucks for distribution. All we just in the hood. Somebody drops it to us in bundles and thousands of pounds, but we're the ones that go to jail for it. So once I learned that, I was just like, look, as if this industry is gonna blow up the way it has blown up, I got to figure out a way how I could use my platform to uplift, educate, and empower people of color to participate in the cannabis industry. When you think about historically, rice, sugar, cotton, alcohol, the lottery, all those things, Black people were right there pioneering, but we don't own any of it, right? So I'm trying to change that with Viola. And because of that, it's funny, right? It's like, it seems like one of those things is like, when you focus on the give back, your riches it just grows,
You're singing my story. You're singing my song. I've been telling that song for a long time.
Yeah. So but it just
grows. That's awesome.
Everything, you know what I'm saying? So honestly, I mean, if you ask me, I think I'm more popular now for cannabis than I am for my basketball career. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna sit here and say that I planned this. You know what I'm saying? It happened, man.
I remember I was at the TED conference years back when it looked like cannabis was going to get legalized in California. And I had this same thought. I was like, we got all these black guys sitting in jail still for smoking frickin' reefer. And it's going to get taken over by, a bunch of white venture capitalists. And I was like, we should do a company called Just Weed. Just Weed. That was at least 51% owned by, black community, and I found a guy, and unfortunately he hurt his back, Stephen Mead, and so we never did the deed. But I had that same idea. But it's awesome to see you did it, because I've we spent a lot of time in my office on criminal justice reform, a lot, and it's kind of the focus of our philanthropy, and trying to find you would have been a big challenge, and you did it without anyone asking. And so that's pretty freaking cool. Really cool, actually.
And we still, and it's funny, man, like it's still, honestly, we are still in the very early days of this industry, and a Just Weed company or, initiative like that is still needed in the space, right? Because right now, currently, we have this thing called social equity, right? And, they're always trying to, give, people of color these licenses, but with no resources behind it. Right. So that's why they most of them are failing, right? Or they're being sold for pennies on the dollar because they just don't have the infrastructure or the resources or just the wherewithal to be able to operate these licenses, So that's something that, obviously, to your point, like I'm still working on that now, trying to figure out more funding so that we can really help these people and give these people a real opportunity at generational wealth, right? And then also you just think about when you add on the fact that, when people from your color, your background, you're naturally gravitated towards helping those people, right? Yeah. So that's why it's so important for those licenses to get into the right operators' hands, people that can actually operate them and be successful so that they can give back to their communities.
So tell me a little bit about Viola. Where does it operate? What do you do?
So we're so we founded in 2011. We started off in Colorado. We have a cultivation facility there. Then we went to Oregon, from Oregon to Michigan, California, Washington State, Oklahoma, and we're about to launch in 4 new markets towards the end of this year, which will be Missouri, Maryland, Illinois, and Pennsylvania. So right now, we in the beginning, I focused on concentrates. Concentrates was the only product that you could actually sell to dispensaries branded. And, with my MBA background, knew how valuable branding was or whatever. So if we grew flower as caregivers, all they would do is you sell it out of a glass jar and just put it into a white thing, and you would never get credit for your product. Right. So I always wanted to build a brand. So we started off with concentrates. We did concentrates for the first 5 years, and then we branched off into flower. So right now we have a full SKU list. We offer flower, pre-rolls, concentrates, and vapes, and we're working on our edibles now.
Let's go back to basketball a little bit, because I'm going to get yelled at by my son if I don't ask you basketball questions. Best teammate you ever had in terms of just raw talent?
Best teammate, raw talent. It's between 2 guys. It's between Jermaine O'Neal and Baron Davis. But I think if I have you put a gun to my head and said choose one, I think it would probably be Baron Davis.
That's interesting. Most memorable season?
Most memorable season, well, it's 2. I mean, there's one going to the finals, my second year in the league with the Pacers, where we lost to Kobe and Shaq, the first of when they went on their first three-peat. But besides that, it was the We Believe team when I played in Golden State. I thought that, that run that we had going from a team that had made the playoffs in 14 seasons, and the fact we had to win so many games to actually get in, that's probably my most memorable season for sure.
Best arena has to be Madison Square Garden, or I'm not going to be your best friend.
Garden, bro, for sure. Garden. Definitely the Garden all day long.
Yeah, and I guess
I always say about the Garden, man, it's funny with the Garden. The Garden is the one arena where, for me, for home games, I always was nervous. Like my goal, it was like my goal. I don't know if my goal was to play well or my goal was just not to get booed. Because they will boo you in a heartbeat in New York.
So you were 7 teams, 16 seasons. Do you have affinity to one of those teams now, or you just, you love the league, you love the people? It's interesting. Basketball, even since you were there, that sport just keeps growing, and it has literally become the dominant sport in America. I think.
Yeah.
Football might argue differently, but I think, is there one team that you're like, I feel like a Pacer, or I feel like a Nick, or I feel like a?
Yeah, I'm a diehard Pacer. That's a team that drafted me. That's the team that I played the longest amount of years for. I played 7 out of my 16 years
Right.
there. The Knicks, I just have a connection just because I grew up a Knicks fan. My mom was a Knicks fan. I had no choice but to be a Knicks. Even I had to hide that I like Jordans. Like my mom literally, like I told her I wanted Jordans and she brought me Ewings back home. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I grew up in. You know what I mean? So I would say those are probably my 2 teams. And then Golden State, we get a lot of love just because, the fans there feel like we kind of the ones that broke the curse and then everything kind of just took off from there.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So those would probably be the 3 that I would say that I got the most connection to.
Your mom, is she still around?
Yeah, my mom said, she lives in Indiana.
Awesome. And what does she think about this whole, like her son being a weed tycoon?
Man, she at first she didn't like it. Now she uses every day. Just like
I would try to get my mom to do mushrooms, and she's like, I'm like, Mom, it's good for you.
Yeah, that's the new thing now. I'm trying to get her to try mushrooms now too. So, but yeah, she's, at first she was concerned about it, especially because my financial advisor that I mentioned before, he dropped me as a client because I chose to make the investment into cannabis, and his exact words was, I'm not going to go to jail helping you launder money. You know what I'm saying? And he just didn't understand. And I get it. He was very old. He was 70 something years old. And, it's hard for people to understand that kind of change, Yeah. But for the most part now, man, it dominates, my life. I don't go anywhere without people wanting to talk about it. I'm gonna tell you when I've really felt comfortable about it, Mike, is maybe year 2, 3 in it. I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do full time. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I didn't want to work for anybody ever again. I was thinking real estate, like big time real estate. And I still obviously made some investments in real estate. But when I would go to meetings, for different things, and you go around the room and everybody kind of state what they're doing currently. Every time it would get to me and I say cannabis, like literally whatever we were there to talk about, whether it was tech or real estate, everybody just would grill me with questions. Everybody would be so interested about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, what is this? And how are you doing this? And how is it the business? And how's it to grow? And this, that, and the third. And at that point is when I realized, I was like, you know what? Like, this is a conversation that people want to have, And after that, I just started being more open about what I was doing. And, here we are 11 years later. I'm going into my 11th year.
And you got to think in the next couple of years, Biden or Biden's successor, lifts the federal caps off it, and we'll really see it explode.
Right? It's really going to explode. It's going to really explode then. But, I'm kind of worried about the industry from that standpoint, because I think that when, federal legalization happens, I think that the small farmers are going to get killed again. You know what I mean? It really sucks. So, in my opinion, the way I'm hedging my bet is building the brand, right? Yep. Because I know these bigger companies are going to want to come in and buy things that are already running already, essentially. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I just really focus on trying to build a brand as big as I can, around quality and consistency. Consistency is a big thing in this space because, unlike other things, right? If I buy, Viola product the first time and it's shitty, I probably won't buy it again.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
How'd you name it Viola?
Oh, that's my grandmother's name.
Nice.
Yeah, this is Miss Viola. I actually made she's still alive too. She
I love that, Shane. I was gonna ask you about it.
Yeah, that's her. So she's 90 years old. She's, she has really bad dementia, and she just got diagnosed with bladder cancer like 2 months ago. So she's definitely on the downside of time or whatever, but she's still with us. What really sucks is she don't really understands the magnitude of her name, that her name is like,
that's such a darn shame, because
it's really, because I remember when I first told her, not that I first told her, but I remember one time we were having a conversation. This is when the dementia was kicking in, but the first thing she said to me, I was like, Grandma, your name is like all over these products everywhere. And she's like, I'm not gonna go to jail, am I? I was like, no, Grandma, you fine. But she's still with us, thank God. And biggest thing for her now is like, we just try to make it as comfortable as possible. You know, believe it or not, she still uses cannabis every single day. We give it to her either in tinctures, or I make her honey nut Cheerios infused or whatever, so that she can get her medicine every day.
I love that.
You know, hopefully that's just a better quality of life.
So family life, married, how many kids?
Married, 4 kids, 4 dogs. The kids are 12, 10, 6, and 4. My 12-year-old's an equestrian. That's a very expensive hobby.
Oh, trust me, I did 2 girls and horses, and you know, I think everybody who makes a little bit of money does girls with horses and makes the same damn jokes about it, because it's a terrible sport.
I'm like, that's why I work so hard, just to pay for the horse shit stuff. Then I have my 10-year-old. I think she's probably gonna end up being like an all-American soccer player.
Wow.
She's like unreal. We're thinking next year, because she's so good and she's like so dedicated, we're probably thinking about homeschooling her so that she could just train for it. You know what I'm saying? So, and then my boys are the 6 and 4. So they're just young and just like me, kind of chubby, uncoordinated. So I just gotta be patient with them. You know, I got them in T-ball and they suck, but I gotta remember that they're babies. You know what I'm saying? But got a great family, man. God has really blessed me. Everybody's healthy. You know, we were able to get through COVID. You know, we all got COVID except for the boys.
Yeah.
And everybody was able to be safe. So, you know, God is good and we're blessed.
Awesome. Well, Alex, great catching up with you. I really, I'm proud of you. I'm excited for you. I'm on Team Harrington and Team Viola. Good seeing you. Be well.
Good seeing you, brother. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes, perfect.
All right. Thanks, Mike.